It's time now to tackle the headline. And as they say, boys, 35, it's the new 25. I mean, Geelong really set the tone for this a few years ago, didn't they? With the too old, too slow, too good was that mantra. And it's really coming to fruition, isn't it? Yes. We're looking at the oldest players in the competition at the moment. Who's likely to go on next year? Who might be hanging up the boots? But let's start at the top of the tree. The oldest man in the game at the moment, Scott Pendlebury at 37.
Well, I just think that he's got one record in his sights, and that's Boomer Harvey, 432. So that means he definitely plays on next year.
Needs 22 more games.
Correct.
Yep.
That means he definitely plays on next year. But has he got another record in his sight? The great Vic Cumberland, who played until he was 43 years of age. Has he got 6 more years in him? Now, let's be serious. He hasn't, but he definitely plays on next year. You wouldn't put it past him to play on in 2027 as well. I certainly wouldn't do that. He's a lock.
Every now and then he said, he hides his light behind a bush. Oh, see how we go, see what the coach says.
He wants
but he played a lot of it last year with a rib injury, and so he spoke on ABC Radio about being inspired by LeBron, who's 40, Manny Pacquiao, who, of course, boxed well into his 40s. And so he's got ambition. Yes, he wants to be a senior coach a long way down the track. But I think when his football is as elite as it is right now, there is absolutely no retirement date set. And I'd be surprised if, as you say, it's not 2 years, and then he's going to have to get pushed out of that joint.
He's got
as a Collingwood geriatric.
He's got a 40 on him. He could almost get to that level. It's probably unlikely, but he could push right to 40 years of age.
And then I think the other thing with him as well, again, is that he's never been quick. We all understand that. But Dacos has got the pace. Ned Long can come in and be a brutal stoppage player. He had 14 in the previous 2 weeks before a really good Anzac Day, but without a lot of stoppages. Sidebottom's going to retire at some stage there. Tom McGaughan comes in, lovely sidestep. And so there's just a few circumstances that we can say he's going to play till he's 50, but there are some specific and real circumstances that really give him a chance to play a lot more football in his AFL career.
That's exactly right. Build that around him. He's fastidious, obviously, in his recovery.
Pushing the half back, pushing the half forward.
That's exactly
he can do
as a sub.
Yeah, he can play in any role. Like Sidebottom, they can play in any role.
Yeah, options are endless. Hey, nipping at his heels at the ripe old age of 36. Of course, we've got a trio, Goldstein, Boak and Dane Zorko. I mean, Goldie suddenly finds himself the main man at Essendon, doesn't he, with a new lease on life?
Yeah, and, funny enough, if it is that Sam Draper comes back and Nick Bryant, they want to contract both of those guys despite a knee and an Achilles, I think Goldstein could play somewhere else. We talked in Midweek Tackle about, those clubs out there that need those Tom Campbell types. Great cultural driver, minimum of fuss. Would like to stay around the inner northern suburbs there, but really good backup and probably chiefs of chips. It's hard to make 150 grand in the world these days. You might as well do it as a quasi ruck coach and also being on an AFL list. Travis Boak, it's more challenging when you're in a team that's trying to win a premiership. I wonder what will happen there with the new coach coming in Josh Carr. Do you want to not clear some out, Malcolm Blight style, with the McDermotts of the world. But, it's still a chance. It's his last year. And Zorko's flying. Kadeem Coleman is coming back, I think, through the VFL this week. Whether that affects his role off half-back. But, I think all of us believe that Dane Zorko is playing on in 2026.
Yeah, one man from Geelong who it feels like he's in the form of his life, which is incredible given that he's won Brownlow medals throughout the journey, is Patrick Dangerfield. He sits at 35 with Callan Ward, Lockie, Keefe and Taylor Walker. I mean, it's astounding to think that that Dangerfield would hang him up with what he's doing forward, isn't it?
He's already got that contract for next year. He very smartly organised that last year, didn't he?
He's got his 2-year deal and we all laughed at it and all of a sudden we're saying, OK, Macca, if he's on the open market, coming into next year, and we understand that Adelaide had a crack at him, it's not going to happen. What would one club pay him who's in the premiership window?
In the window.
Yeah, again, just give us the hypothetical to say he might come out and kick 30 or, more to the point, have one rampaging final and win us a flag.
Is it ridiculous to think you give a high-end second round if he's the player? Would you do something like that? I think you would.
Yeah, I think Gary Ablett got a very similar deal.
Absolutely. So if he was the player that was going to win you a premiership, I think you'd do it.
I think Higgins might have got picked 30 when Geelong got him for a couple of years.
So that's what I'm sort of thinking, and I reckon that's probably about right.
I'm always about the cash, Macca. I was talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the money.
The mauler.
I think you've been unrestricted. Yeah. So what would someone
he's unrestricted? So that's the situation.
Would someone have paid him 8s?
8s is a lot. I would have thought 7s definitely.
Right.
You're right. Unrestricted, he would be fine to go wherever. He's not. Let's be honest. Let's cut to the chase. He's not leaving Geelong.
We're talking about hypotheticals, Mac.
We like hypotheticals, but he's staying. I reckon 750. He's worth that for the right club. What's he on at Geelong, Ralphie?
2-year deal, I'm thinking 550, mate.
Yeah, that's the
I
thing.
mean, a
Like,
lot
it's
of
a big
those
uptick.
boys have paid for
It's a big
lot
uptick
less
to
than
800.
have.
It's a very big uptick.
Yeah, and you know what? He gets his houses, he gets his cars. They're all for free. You know, Paddy's not putting his hand out for a lot of things. Good to see
Neither
a
he
Paddy
should.
down at Moss Creek.
On the other ones, Cal Ward, it'd be an interesting scenario with Cal Ward whether somebody, if he doesn't go on again next year, would someone try and pick him up? I reckon they would.
It'd have to be a Victorian
Oh,
club.
I think a
we know
Victorian
he's living
team
away
coming
from
back.
his family. He's, said to them basically that it's going to be this year apart. I'll come back. Would it be North Melbourne, someone like
Absolutely.
The only thing is, as a real inside midfielder, that's the only challenge.
Yeah.
So North
Yeah.
Melbourne needed that a couple of years back with Sheila and a few of those guys, Hugh Greenwood. They've got enough of those players. So, maybe a West Coast would want him, but clearly he's not going to the West Coast. So, he'd be an extraordinary assistant coach. You name your price as just one of footy's best blokes and, best cultural exports.
And how do you never say never with Lockie Keefe? He feels like he's been around forever, still a bit of a match winner. I think Taylor Walker, we all thought that he may have even gone or retired this year. He's had that book. I reckon he's had a book written for a number of years now. It's just sitting
Any
there
bombshells in there about the camp or about the racism
There's a few bombshells
saga?
in there, but sitting there waiting to come out. I would think that this would probably be his last year. But if they're in the window and they play finals and they're high-end finals, why wouldn't he try and play on for another year?
So Liam Jones wanted a contract. Of course, his manager Shane Cassidy was keen to get that done. He had the high-end hamstring. Now he probably won't get back this weekend. Same thing. If Bustlinger goes past him, someone will give him an extra year. Everyone always wants key position defenders. Rampy's going well. Howe's going to play on. Reece Stanley will get another year.
Yeah.
To be a key position player like a ruckman, you just get to play on until you're 50 years of age. And so good on Reece Stanley, just sitting down there on the farm, basically being used to try and drag down Clayton Oliver, and all of a sudden he's playing a leading role in the Geelong ruck department.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we know still side bottom. He's
He plays
34.
on.
He wants to play on.
Becca wrote him off
Absolutely.
at about round 6
I
last
don't
year.
recognise. You've said that. I can't believe you've said that. I thought, no, not at all.
You wrote
very
off
hard.
the great Collingwood champion.
No, I
and
would never
dual
do that.
Anzac
He's right in the mix of being one of the great Collingwood players of all time now, and he's been able to do it at both ends of his career. So, and a couple of other ones there. Luke Bruce. What happens to Luke Bruce? That's you
plays
would
on.
think he
Plays
plays
on as a rookie for 80 grand a year.
Yeah, and plays on for something like that. Jeremy Howe's a lock, isn't he?
Yep.
You would think he's a lock.
And Michael Walters again, if his knee holds
Yeah.
up, maybe. But
Yeah.
they're going to have to push a few of those.
So
in.
it just
the geriatrics are all playing
They
on.
are. They're
They're
all
all
playing
rubbing their
on.
hands together with glee.
Take the cash.
Yeah, it's one to watch. As I say, they're ageing like a fine wine all across the competition. That's it for us for Tackle the Headline. We'll see you next time.